Need of a microphone. So, welcome to my talk, Scraping APIs for Swim and Profit. I won't say the case study, it's more of a story. So come along with me on a story about APIs and why securing them evens the playing field. My name is Melissa Augustine Goldsmith. I am a lead threat hunter at NBC Universal /Sky /Illumination /DreamWorks. We seem to own quite a few things. But I've been doing forensics and IR officially since 2007, and I started doing threat hunting in 2020 during lockdown because there was nothing else to do. I used to teach things back in the old school day when I was a consultant. I taught malware forensics and incident response a bunch of places around the world. I code badly. I am not a coder. I'm a bodger. I'll see a problem and I'm like, can I code my way out of this? And if I can, excellent. And then I let the professionals deal with the rest. And I've spoken at places before, but nothing to do with this. So let me set you up with a scenario. So has anyone ever been to the Bristol Lido? It's beautiful, right? Very lovely, right? But it is members only, and you are only allowed to go if there are spaces. So you have to go, and there's a system that you can try and book, and it's a bit difficult. And there's apparently a 2,000-person waiting list to become a member for the Bristol Lido. It's in a beautiful area of Clifton in Bristol, and I highly recommend you try and go. It's very beautiful, and I've been wanting to go for a while. I have a thing about Lidos. I don't know, it's a British thing. It's just fun. I like going in them. The colder, the better. The one in Cornwall is actually quite nice as well. But anyways, it was my 40th recently, and I was trying to figure out where to go with some of my girlfriends, and I said, let's go to Bristol. I haven't really been to Bristol, and this is a good excuse for me to now try and go to the Lido. And my friends are like, well, it's your birthday, sure, we'll go. But even 2 months before the said date of this event, there were not enough slots for 5 people. So the swim slots, I tried to go. I was like, oh, sorry, there's only slots for 2 people. Like, this is unacceptable, right? I don't like being told no, especially for my 40th birthday. So one of my friends who was coming with us, she is a database admin, and she noted that the API, or Application Programming Interface, was actually completely wide open. You could interact with it however you see fit. So this led me down the path of scraping the API to try and ensure we could be made aware of any cancellations and then jump on and book that, right? Because I wanted to really go to the Lido. So what is API scraping? People of a certain age will remember when the web was Web 1.0 and static, something called web page scraping. Where you go to the website, you'd use like curl or wget or Python if you're feeling really fancy, and get the information from a web page, and then you could do with it whatever you want. You could put it into a database, you could aggregate it, and just modify it or massage it to output however you wanted it to do. The API is kind of the same way. You can scrape that data because now it's all dynamic, and so you can't just scrape a web page anymore. So you can use the API to scrape that and get that data and then do with it as you see fit. So how did I go about doing that? So hopefully any pen testers or network engineers probably know all about developer mode in Chrome. It is this amazing feature. It is free because Chrome is free. It's F12 if you're ever in Chrome and are wondering what the heck I'm talking about. But it shows you a bunch of information about your web browsing activity, including network traffic. So all of the requests, when you go to a website, you can see all the requests that the website is making on your behalf for you. So all I needed to do was then go to the website for each of the services that I wanted and note the web request, and then massage that URL to match my specifications. So if you see here, this is in developer mode down here, and then up ahead is the Bristol Lido website. And you can't really see it, but over there is like, what day do you want your booking to be? And then down here you can see the URL to go to that, to get that information back. And you can see here there's like an offering ID, and so that is the swim option. And then over there you can see the response, which is in everyone's favorite, JSON. So, you can actually massage it, the payloads here, the requests. You can see all this stuff you can do in Chrome developer mode. It is amazing. I highly recommend it. So, okay, proof of concept time, right? So here's my bodged code, Python, to basically get this information. So I use requests to get the URL, and you can see the URL parameter, and I set the date to a specific variable, the 14th of October. And then you can see here, parsing the JSON. Again, this could probably be done much nicer, but again, Bodger, not coder. And I print the time slots available, the time available, and then how many slots are available. So, right, I'm looking, not only am I looking for a number of slots, but I'm also looking for a specific time, because I wanted to go to the Clifton Suspension Bridge Vault tour, which was at a certain time, so I had to do that. I had to do this before that, because I'm 40 and I find bridges very interesting, and that's fine. So that was cool, and that worked. I was like, hooray, this is great. I can now get this information. But why stop there? One of the things that's interesting about computer security is that if you have a curious mindset, you just kind of keep going a little bit, a couple inches farther and farther to see, well, what else can I do? Well, how about this and how about that? It's always a fun field to be in, for sure. So the Lido offers something called swim and spa packages. And in a pinch, we could buy one of those to grab a spot at the Lido. So I messaged my girlfriends and I said, would everyone be okay to spend 90 quid to do a spa and a swim package? They said, we are all parents. Yes, please, would someone give me a massage for the love of goodness? So once I knew that, I could then, again, go to developer mode to see what the URL looks like for the swim and spa packages. And you can see up here the beautiful curl command and then the beautiful JSON that you get vomited back out at you. And obviously, this is not pretty. Humans don't really read this very well. But luckily, there's lots of JSON prettifiers like JQ, which is, you ready for the animation? Here it comes. Whoa. So suddenly, this becomes much more easier for us humans to look at, to parse. And then I'm like, okay, this is how I have to parse my JSON in my Python code. So then I know, it's nested within these structures here. So that's nice. So again, I have my code working, do a little happy dance, have a cup of tea. But I'm like, this is all well and good, but I don't want to sit here and have to remember to do this every single day. So old school people are like, just set up a cron job. I don't want to do that. I don't actually leave my laptop or desktop online anymore. I just turn it off because at the end of the day, I just want to turn off. Don't want to have my laptop on. So I thought, hey, I could use a Lambda function, which I've heard so much about. And I want to kind of learn and understand how it works, so this is a great opportunity to do so. So I figured, okay, can I leverage Lambda to do this code for me, and then alert me via email or SMS or smoke signals, wherever is the easiest, if a slot becomes available. And this was actually very easy. Learning Lambda is not as hard as I thought it would be. Literally, all you do is you plop your code in that function Lambda handler, and it works very magically. So I was all ready to, learn lots of new stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is all you have to do. Okay, cool. Yay. So I had another cup of tea and I felt like I was winning, but I still needed to get it to run, right? I don't want to have to, the whole point of Lambda is serverless code running without a server. Sorry. So it basically can run your code when a trigger has occurred. So somebody goes to your S3 bucket, somebody makes requests to your website, it can trigger a Lambda function. In the NBC Universal world, somebody wants to go watch a certain video, so there'll be a Lambda function to potentially go and start pulling all the shards to then show you guys videos. But I don't need that. I just need it to run like a cron job. So how did I do that? I used something called an event bridge. So I could set it to run at whatever interval I wanted. And then from there, you can see here, I set it up to run every hour. And this was all free. This didn't require me to have a super special AWS tier. So this whole thing cost me absolutely nothing, just my time. So, okay, cool. I have a trigger to run every hour. I have my code. But now, how is it going to tell me that this is now available? Well, I created a burner Gmail account. I was going to do an SMS, but there was a lot of extra setup for it, and I decided ain't nobody got time for that. I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way, and I set up an email account, and then I used something called an app password. So basically, it allowed me to make code that would allow Gmail to send emails on behalf of that code, if that makes sense. So I could basically send an email from a Python script. And you can see how to do that over at that lovely URL. So here's my, again, Bodge Python code. It says, if there are any results from that Python thing that I sent you before, then I want you to send me an email. And again, Lambda is very powerful. You could have it do all sorts of other triggers, like webhooks to a Slack channel and all that good jazz. But again, simple. So the result, success, great success. October pool availability. So I used the 13th as a test subject because that's actually when there was availability. Unfortunately, the day that I wanted, for a while there was no availability. But you can see here, it does the job that I needed to. It says, hey, we have the following open slots for the pool, and we have the following massage appointments for you that are available. And you're like, yes. So now all I had to do was set the right day, and then just hope to goodness that it was actually going to send me an email. So the question is this a bad thing? I don't know. Like, I didn't feel like it was, but when you think about it, it gives me a distinct advantage over somebody who doesn't know about APIs and understands that you can change the query to be a certain, the date to be whatever you want, and you can parse the results in JSON. So it doesn't seem very fair to somebody who has to set an email reminder every day. Okay, I need to go check and see if there's any slots available at 9:00 because we're human. We forget these things. And you're like, oh God, I might have just missed that one slot because I forgot to check. But what if this was, Glastonbury tickets or DEF CON tickets or Taylor Swift tickets? Suddenly it becomes much more like, hey, this isn't very fair. And that's why obviously Ticketmaster and all those other companies have lots and lots of things to try and prevent this kind of thing from happening. But, okay, so the question is, how do you fix this, right? There's no point in having a problem without presenting some solutions. So there's session tokens or OAuth that you can do to try and authenticate everyone who's using the API, which again, for this doesn't really make much sense because this is open to everybody. Everybody can go to these, the Bristol Lido website and interact with this. They just don't realize they're interacting with it. You can do request limits. So, if you see this IP making a request more than 4 times over X amount of times, then I want you to block it. But that'll then block potential valid users, right? Because if you're trying to just find any available slot, you're just clicking, next day, next day, next day, and you might get blocked, which is not a good user experience. You can do anomaly checking or user agent checking, but that's very trivial to just change your user agent to be whatever you want it to be. So that doesn't really work. It only will protect you from behaving bots, really. The true way of doing this would be to have visitors hitting the API front end, and then that host will then go to the back end, get the information, and then return that back to you. So you're not actually interacting with the API. It's just like that middleman proxy doing it. But again, it's like the cost versus the reward scenario here. And they're probably like, this doesn't make much sense to do because it's open, right? So again, is this such a bad thing? I don't know. But I could go on. So if I find availability, I can, in theory, start doing more coding to go through the process of buying that slot automatically and then emailing me saying, hey, Melissa, here are your 5 slots. Obviously requires a lot more work because you start dealing with, CAPTCHAs and credit card information, which is a lot more, I don't say protected, but has a lot more things in place to try and prevent this kind of thing from happening. But anything is possible, correct? It could be swimming as a service. You tell me what you want and when you're trying to get it, and I can have you get emailed or SMS'd when it's available for a fee. Not really, probably, I'm not going to be retiring to the Maldives anytime soon off of this swimming as a service, but again, it's possible, right? And then you think, well, this is just Bristol Lido. Well, there's actually other systems that leverage this. And there. So there's about, this is on VirusTotal, about 29, 28, whatever, spas that leverage this API. So in theory, I could say not only can I try and make sure that you get notified if there's a slot available for the for Bristol Lido, but how about the Thames Lido or another Lido nearby? So you can start increasing your swimming as a service to suddenly start looking a lot more lucrative. But in the end, we were very successful, and we were able to go to the Lido And that is 4 of us. Unfortunately, one of the people had to leave. But that was just a fun way of how I was able to finally go to the Bristol Lido. So, does anybody have any questions? Oh, yes, hello.
I've been looking into similar things for quite a lot of electric car APIs. And some of them are surprisingly, this is open public for swimming,
yeah.
But I've been surprised how many big brand car APIs are just not so well. Is there a sort of industry, is there like a standard or best practice? Does anyone like NIST or have any standards for these APIs to ensure that it isn't just you do the browser rather than sort of API?
I am pretty sure there are some standards, but unfortunately I don't know. I feel like NIST would definitely have a standard on securing APIs or like locking down APIs, or SANS. They might have come out with some white papers on it. But for a UK perspective, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. But it would make sense, especially I've seen talks where someone was able to have, like, it was the Tesla API, and they were able to, like, change, like, the windshield wipers and, like, the lights to turn on and off. And you're like, that's not good, is it? But, yeah, it is a big problem. And there was a question, and so... I dry ran this with my parents, and the first thing my mother asked was, "Is this legal?" And I'm like, "Yes," but I do think there's an aspect on that website though that I'm going to double check, because if it's as not locked down as this, I'd be a bit more nervous about it. So I might actually have to tell them about it. But it is a problem, and people don't even realize. It's kind of like the S3 buckets that people think is secure because Amazon has that shared security, like, oh, it's totally locked down, but it's actually not. So people might not even realize their API is exposed, and bad things can happen.
If you use stuff like some basic JavaScript translations, so it wouldn't work with curl, but all you need to do is put JavaScript in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the amount of time that, you're willing to just, like, work around it. Yeah. So. Anybody else? Yes.
Is this legal problem? At what point does it become illegal to start that with it? Like, what, or is you're scanning stuff and you're requesting data that they don't intend to use?
Yeah.
Which is but at what point is it that's a line you've started to really commit to this for?
Well, I think it is anytime you're starting to, like, actually try and change. So, like, if I could suddenly find other people's bookings and change it to my own somehow, I think that would start to not even blur the lines, and that would definitely be bad, or starting to access other people's personal identifiable information. Then you start getting to, I think we probably need to talk to them about they have a potential exposed thing that's actually exposing people's personal information. But it's a great question, and that's like the one thing, like I said, the one part of the website that I'm a bit worried about is the thing that I'd be afraid to start scratching that, because I think it starts to blur if that's legal or not. And so I'd have to actually start talking to somebody who has a degree in law. So, yes, sorry.
I'll go back to that question.
Oh, God.
The way I would probably say it is, at the point where you're faster than what a human could do, I would say that's when you're abusing the system. Mm. So, for example, if you're scraping that data and then making an instant booking, I would say that is then crossing the line, maybe.
Yeah, because I was running this code, I think it was like once every hour. So in theory, like, I could do that every hour if I just remembered, but I'm a human and I can't remember anything. So, yeah, thank you. Yes?
You said, did you tell the Lido?
So once I'm there's this one part of the API that I'm a bit nervous about, and if it's open like this, I'm going to tell them. But this, it's that question of, is this, it's kind of working as the system intended, right? I'm just skipping the UI interface, the GUI, and just going straight to the data. So I think it's kind of a gray area. I'm sure my mother would prefer me to tell them. I probably will, just because I just don't want them to ban me, because I thought it's a really lovely Lido. I might get a free swim, which would be really nice. So, yes.
It's like if you paid someone to check every hour for you.
Exactly. No, so this is it. It's like you could pay people to queue in a line for you, so you can go and get your cup of coffee while you're waiting for whatever ridiculous thing that someone is selling. It's the same concept. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it's that question of, is that how they intended the API to be used, and do they do they care enough to spend the money to fix the problem when, in theory, there's nothing personal behind it. There's nothing, super sexy that they're going to be worried about on Krebs or anything. Yes?
Sometimes you can actually tell people stuff like that, and they either don't understand or they understand but they don't care.
Yeah.
So you could tell them, and if the person or the business actually doesn't care, it might still be wrong, but it's kind of like...
Well, I don't think I would go to the Lido specifically. I think I would just go to the try.be, these people, and say, hey, do you guys realize that this is possible? Because, I was just doing it once every hour, but what's to stop me from doing it once every minute? Could I potentially DDoS their system? I hope not, but I don't know. I don't know what the resiliency is, and I'm not, I like my job. I don't want to lose it, so, yeah. Yes?
More of a follow-up comment, because you're like, well, how can this be a service? But there is actually an app that you can currently sign up for with a monthly fee to do exactly this for driving tests.
Yes.
Scrape
I've heard of this.
Cancellations, and then immediately, and it's quite funny of that gray area that you were talking about, because it can immediately book you in for the test.
Oh. See, now, suddenly my swimming as a service, my SaaS platform is suddenly sounding very lucrative. My island in the Seychelles is going to become a reality, so.
I mean, there's loads of websites, right? Like Stock Informer, but when there was GPU shortages.
Yeah.
They do exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
And it's fine, right? You're using the API exactly. The API exists to allow people to find slots, and that's what you're using.
Yeah.
If you then decided to, if it said the slot was unavailable, but you then still took that slot ID and tried sending it to the book endpoint.
Yeah. Then it becomes start taking somebody else's from them. So, yes.
I guess it's an economic thing, right? Because it's a small scale, nobody, not
yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
Interested. But if the Lido and other sort of users or customers of this provider, API service provider, knew about it and they then raise it with the provider, will be more likely.
What happens if there was somebody visiting to Bristol for that day only, and they really, really, really wanted to go to the Lido, and I took their slots, and then they were leaving and never coming back? Seems unfair, but yeah. Oh. Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much.